Hello world, I'm Tomasino. This is Solarpunk Prompts, a series for writers where we discuss solarpunk, a movement that imagines a world where technology is used for the good of the planet. As the Solarpunk Wikipedia page says, whereas cyberpunk envisions humanity becoming more alienated from its natural environment and subsumed by technology, solarpunk envisions settings where technology enables humanity to better coexist with itself and its environment. Solarpunk is more similar to steampunk than cyberpunk. Our goal is to help see that future world into existence by developing genre stories which push these sensibilities into the public consciousness. In this series, we spend each episode exploring a single solarpunk story prompt, adding some commentary, some inspirations, and some considerations. Most importantly, we consider how that story might help us to better envision a sustainable civilization. If this is your first time here, I'd recommend checking out our introduction post first, where we talk about what solarpunk is, why you should care, and why this series came into being. Now, let's get started. Today's prompt is the Canteen. For clarity, we're talking about a cafeteria, lunchroom, or mess hall here, not the type of canteen you can drink out of. A canteen in an isolated scientific or environmental outpost, where scientists, engineers, cooks, and maintenance staff show each other their human face, while still remembering the importance of their role here and the harsh conditions of the outside. For example, cleaning the plastic from the oceans, or measuring the polar ice levels, etc. I've talked a great deal so far about the positivity of solarpunk, especially how it treats technology in the future. And that is with great reason. One of solarpunk's common descriptions is that it's the opposite of cyberpunk. Well, perhaps opposite isn't exactly the right word, but it gets to the heart of things. Solarpunk isn't a gritty, collapsed society with the technological power of oppression laying over everything. And so the rainbows and green pasture aesthetic predominates public consciousness. And that's probably a fine thing. I should say solarpunk is optimistic. It is hopeful. Solarpunk stories can take many forms, though. That hope and optimism may not pervade every aspect equally. Today's prompt is a great example of that. Here we have a harsh outer world surrounding the community. It could be anything from a blizzard-covered tundra to a plague-ridden city ruin. Where do we find the hope and optimism in a place like that? In the community, of course. Remember Solarpunk Guideline number 1, the community as protagonist. Having a glimmer of hope and determination in the midst of a setting of challenge, or even of despair, is a powerful juxtaposition. It can grant you the ability to explore the full range of emotional experience for your characters. You can challenge those sensibilities, even dip into moments of doubt to further emphasize the choice of hope. When faced with an external threat or antagonist, we have less need for the internal ones that we've discussed so far. We can lead into that harmony of community as a balm for the difficult realities faced in bringing the solarpunk sensibilities to the outside world. I'm thinking of our second guideline here. Infrastructure is sexy, but there is no simple solution. What are your characters building or fixing? What do they seek to change in the world around them? What challenges must they overcome? Is it a physical barrier? Scientific? Or are there outsiders? Are we changing hearts and minds? The unique landscape of challenges paints a picture where we can really dive in and illustrate that sense that there's no simple solution. Think about the unique gifts present in the individuals of your community. What do they bring to bear on their mission? How do the relationships within the community express themselves in its outward efforts? Do all of your characters agree on the same path? Or do their backgrounds inform unique perspectives? Here's a point where I like to think back to our refugee camp a little bit. Remember the mixture of cultures and the dynamic Creole languages that it developed? What sort of cultural mashup exists in this isolated community? What sort of unique skills might those cultures bring? How will they each handle the stresses of their work, especially being isolated from the rest of the world? With this in mind, their struggles may overlap and interweave, and the starts and stops and restarts, that could be part of their progress. If you wanted to focus more on the science fiction or the climate fiction aspects of the story, these challenges and their setbacks provide ample opportunity to work through ideas and scenarios, or even a comprehensive list of environmental processes. You could highlight some specific aspect of climate change or a way to combat it. We have many themes to explore in the genre, and many approaches to those themes, and it's okay to service more than one. A good solarpunk story can also be good science fiction. If none of that appeals to you, though, this prompt demands none of it. It would be perfectly fine to choose to have a simple sense of the outer dread. The world is dying, but we're working to save it. And let that aspect of the story be a backdrop only. After all, we haven't yet discussed the actual focus of the prompt, the canteen. This prompt is designed to narrow the focus to the human moments of community, rather than focusing exclusively on their work. The setting of the canteen, or mess hall, would be a place for everyone to mingle and mix outside of their normal roles, to share a meal, to relax, to talk, perhaps more. When we're talking about isolated communities, we're talking about a unique culture. Culture is a system of shared meanings. It could be expressed in any number of ways, from rituals, religious practices, taboos, and especially food. We covered the topic of language in some depth earlier, and it would be equally appropriate here. The card game Dialect might help you brainstorm ideas. For those traveling to work in Antarctica, there is a thing called the No Appendix Club. That is a group of people with literally no appendix. They had it removed. It's not technically required of everybody traveling to Antarctica. In fact, it's only required of doctors staying over in the winter. But it's become part of their cultural tradition. When you imagine this communal eating area, bring all of this to mind. What has the culture bred? How strong is it? How equipped is it to deal with the challenges it faces? There's a term called cultural resilience, which is used to describe a culture's ability to cultivate and develop an identity, knowledge, and practices, and how its values, language, and customs can help it overcome adversity. A resilient culture is one that can absorb adversity, to deal with change and continue to develop. These are the types of communities we want to better envision with solarpunk. How do all these multitudes of pieces and parts come together for your community? At the turn of the century, UNESCO issued a Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity, and in it, it linked cultural resilience to metrics of national happiness. How happy is your community, despite their challenges? And then finally, after plenty of consideration for their mission and their unique skills and viewpoints, and how that would build into culture and mores, we can ask the most important human question. What do they do with their free time? Would a solarpunk community of scientists play cards after dinner? Or would that sort of competitive gaming feel flat? What about board games or puzzles? Do they seek to escape their reality by playing imaginative games? Is there a Dungeons & Dragons group in the corner? Is there live-action role-playing? This may be the time for characters to let their hair down. It's definitely a great time to explore their everyday humanity. And it's also a nice exercise for you personally. Imagine yourself for a moment in a solar punk community of the near future. How would you want to spend your free time? Now, you can help the world imagine it with you. And that's the first step in making it real. Thanks for joining me today. I'll talk to you soon on the next Solarpunk Prompt. Music in this recording is Nikodimov Weeds from Global Patterns compilation Solarpunk, A Brighter Perspective.